Hello there, my name is Doc Conrad, and this is my little preamble to the podcast. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who is a part of this podcast, including all the guests and the two wonderful artists who help bring this podcast to life. At Meloscav, at MELOSCAV, created the icon for this podcast, and at Doidaflower, at DOIDUHFLOWER, is the artist behind the visuals on YouTube and other social media sites. If you'd like to keep up to date with the show, follow the show on Twitter at CommsOpenPodcast. For the 9th episode of Commissions Open, I interviewed Rissa, a media design major and artist from the Netherlands. I discovered her art after seeing her fan art from one of my favorite D&D podcasts, Bombarded, and have enjoyed her art ever since. You can follow Rissa on Twitter and Instagram at Laurocoronatus. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Commissions Open, an interview podcast all about art in the digital age. Hear the process, stories, and lives of artists, voice actors, video creators, editors, musicians, and many other talented creators in the era of online work. I am your host, Doc Conrad, and today we have, let me get this name right, Laurocoronatus. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes, and otherwise known as Rissa, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for going ahead and just doing this sort of like short notice and being willing to go ahead and be interviewed. I appreciate it so much, and working out the time differences and all that. You're from the Netherlands, is that correct?
That is right. Yeah.
Yeah. What is we were just talking about how I can't pronounce your town's name. What was it?
I live in Emmeloord.
Emmeloord. Okay. I'll try to. I try to copy the accent so it sounds more like it, but it probably is a butcher. But oh well.
That's totally fine.
Okay. So, Rissa, what is it that if you had to go ahead and sum up yourself to like either a family member or someone who has always been who has wondered what you do, how would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm just overall very if I say so, a creative person. I've always been busy with art. My family has been doing art for a while as well, so it's kind of a family thing. I do a lot of things. I game, I listen to podcasts, I walk my dogs. I have actually quite a few of pets. I have a lot of cats, dogs. I have a few birds. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to go and hear more about all your animals, but I'd also like to talk about you being you're doing an internship at the moment, and you're also a media design
That's
student.
right.
Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to go ahead and talk more about what you're doing in there, and why is it you decided to go ahead and get into media design specifically?
I actually started wanting to get into media design when I was in high school, because I was thinking like I want to do something with art, but what do I want to do? And I've been a media design student before, but I quit because of the travel distance, and then I became an animation and audiovisual student for 2 years, but I quit that as well and started media design again, because that is actually still my true passion. So I started doing that again. And right now I'm actually in my graduating year, so I'm gonna hopefully graduate this year.
Yeah.
And right now I'm actually doing an internship at a photo studio.
Okay. So you are obviously you're in media design, but you also have a great I also love each of your individual artwork as well. What was it that made you just initially change from doing media design to think you're going to, because of the travel distance you said, but what made you decide to do animation for a little bit there as well?
I love animated movies. As a child, I used to watch a lot of Disney and all that all those kind of cartoons and everything. And in high school, I tried doing some animations, but I had this shitty laptop, and it was really old, but very slow as well. So I made a few small animations, like 2 seconds long or something like that. So actually was I had to choose between media design and animation. So actually, well, tried a bit of both, and then decided that I did want to do media design, but keep animation a little bit on the side. And I haven't been doing that for years because animation programs can be expensive. Now I actually have an animation program again, so I want to start animating a bit on the side again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you've I personally haven't seen any of your like your animations just as of yet. But I'd love to go ahead and see them because I mean like you're clearly I love your art. I love your stylistic choices that you have, and I'd love to go ahead and talk about how you got into that in the first place, like where it all started. Like was there like a moment where you're like, "Oh yeah, I want to do this," or has it always been like a family thing?
It's actually always been a family thing. I've been drawing since I could hold like a crayon, and it actually started with my grand uncle because he was a painter in Amsterdam a long time ago. I actually still have some drawings of his which are like more than 70 years old, and all my art teachers want to buy them from me because they're so old. And he actually was a student of a cartoon artist. I forgot the name, but he's actually pretty famous artist. And after that, he started doing for theater like big backgrounds and everything. So lots of painting in that. And my mother actually paints for fun, just casual painting and everything. And so actually, I was like, I want to do art as well as like for myself as a hobby. But then it started becoming more and more, and then I was like, I want to go to an art school, and now here I am.
Yeah, so I know that we had a previous guest who was European as well, who was actually from Italy, and they have a different schooling system than we do in America. I'd love to go ahead and talk about how what your schooling what your school experience was like growing up, especially getting into your media design and as well as your different like drawing and animation that you've all done. I'd love to talk about that.
Okay, all right. Let's see. I always used to kind of have art classes. Like that is like when you learn to read and write and everything, that have you draw like little things as well. And in high school later as well, we have art classes. And then well, after 4 years for me, high school can either go like 6 years or 4 years. For me, it was 4 years, and then I went to college and just kept making art.
Okay. Yeah, so you've been around art your whole life, and you've had it from both your, like you said, your mom and your great uncle or your uncle?
My grand uncle, yeah.
Okay. So have you noticed like any big inspirations for your like specific work that you've done from like either whether it be I know there's a podcast because I'm wanting to talk about that as well because I absolutely love your work that you do with you do like fan drawings for Bombarded, but I'd love to go ahead and talk about like some of your other inspirations as well.
I mostly get my inspirations from the internet, and like you said, from podcasts, but also from my friends because I have a lot of friends who do art. And sometimes we just get together and hang out, and we just kind of draw and stuff, or go through each other's sketchbooks. And sometimes you're like, "Oh, that's really cool! I kind of want to make a character like that myself." Or we play games and we make characters from the characters we play in game. I actually years ago I started playing Terra. I don't know if you know that MMORPG.
Yes,
But,
yes.
my friends and I used to play that together, and two of us actually started drawing our characters, and my character actually called Travion, which is one of my oldest characters actually. And I just started drawing them, and we'd be like making up stories like, oh, they'd hang out together and everything, and what kind of things would they do. I actually had him because he uses swords to fight. I was
Mhm.
like, I think he probably would name his swords all kind of things, like his twin swords, just all kinds of stuff, and that kept evolving actually. And then actually with the same friend, I actually started playing D&D.
Mhm.
So I was like, I kind of want to make that character into a D&D character. So it started all kind of evolved from that into more.
Mhm. Oh, I find that a lot of people have found, including artists, have found D&D to be like one of the most like unique experiences that they've ever had, and it's very rewarding as well. Like there's been a lot of different there's been a lot of different like how would I put this, like creatives in voice acting and artists who draw their characters, or voice actors who like voice who like love making their characters, or like DMs making entire worlds for artists and all of that. How would you were you just a player in your D&D campaign?
I'm actually just a player, but I am trying to make my own world because I have some friends from my class right now who never played D&D before, and I'm the only one from us who's ever played D&D before. So I was like, I'll take on the role of dungeon master, and
Mhm.
I will try to create a world. And we've only played once, and then
Mhm.
we had to quit because one of our friends had to go. So we only played for like the beginning of the game, so we didn't get very very far.
Mhm.
But I'm still not kind of happy with what I wanted. So I still kind of want to shape that world into a bit more,
Mhm.
which
No,
is a bit difficult but very fun.
yeah, I definitely think that and you're definitely like inspired from D&D specifically, and I'd say not to state that I know everything about this, but I feel like you're one of your big inspirations has been Bombarded, a podcast all
Hmm.
about three bards and come from a band called Linby, which I also enjoy and loved. And how I initially found you was from one of them retweeting your art. And I'd love for you to go ahead and like talk about how you found them and what you've done with their characters.
I've actually listened to a lot of D&D podcasts, especially from the McElroy brothers and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, when I was done with that, I was like, I want to hear more. So I started going on Spotify, trying to look up D&D podcasts. And eventually on Google as well, it's like, what are great D&D podcasts? And eventually I found Bombarded, and I was like, well, that sounds really interesting. Just three bards and everything. I was like, how would three bards survive in a world like that?
Mm-hmm.
And I just started listening to them, and I kind of fell in love with the podcast. And at a moment, I was like, what would they look like to me? And from there, I was like, I really like Yashi. Yeah, she's just
Yes.
this sweet, fun half orc who's just like she just wants to be involved with everything. She's
Mm-hmm.
so fun, and
Mm-hmm.
so I started drawing her. I actually started drawing her on my phone with just my finger while I was on the bus. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I wanna. I think she would have like big fluffy hair and everything, and that was kind of my inspiration, just a big fluffy hair.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it's like she's still this sweet girl, but I want to kind of like look kind of tough, but still be sweet. And from there, I was like, well, I think this suits her or this suits her, and just kept going from there. And eventually, I started finding myself drawing her more and more often, and just putting them on Twitter and on Instagram and everything. And actually, later, I found the Bombarded fan group on Discord as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a lot of other people and other artists who draw them as well. So that's really cool to see other people um, draw the characters for what they think they are.
Mm-hmm. And like share them within
And
the community.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Like I said, your Yashi's my headcanon, gotta say.
Hmm.
Big floofy hair, really like what I love about her is that this is gonna be a slight like gush on her, but this is all gonna be also about you. This is just something we can relate to. I love how like I love the hair, and two, I love as the character. She is really like she's sort of like bumbling a lot, like
Hmm.
worrying about different things and being incredibly concerned, especially about her friends. And
Yeah.
I think you express that very well with some of that, especially how she interacts with the other characters. And I love it so much. I just want to say.
It makes me really happy to hear. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Of course, yeah. I mean, like I followed you for a while, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a little story, real quick. So the name of this podcast, like I said before, is named Commissions Open.
Hmm.
Um, I saw that you happen to like and retweet quite a number of things, and you're always on my dash, especially when I'm just scrolling all the time. And whenever I see your stuff, I keep seeing your little Twitter banner, and I
Hmm.
keep seeing commissions open, and I think that's what like put me in the mindset of like this is the podcast name. That's just it. It works perfect. So I think you helped make my podcast. Just
Oh my god.
yeah. uh
That's so cool.
it's just a little it's just a little thing of like maybe I subconsciously did it or whatnot. But yeah, that's just a little story I wanted to say. Um but your I also want to talk about your tiefling character. Is that the same character from Terra, or is this something different?
This is a different character. This is actually a character I made, I believe, 2 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
actually started doodling her in my sketchbook, and then for a year I didn't draw her as much. But then since last year, I started drawing her more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she actually become my muse actually, because she's so much fun. She actually called Nacula, which is I couldn't find a name for her for a long time. And then one of my best friends is like, "You should give her this name." It's like, oh my god, that is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend actually helped me name her. I want her to be one of my D&D characters, but I don't have a sheet for her yet.
You should totally do so. You have a lot of different expressions that she has, and I could totally see her being like a mischievous either being a mischievous bard or mischievous like warlock. I could totally go ahead and
Yeah,
see
something like
some of
that. Yeah,
those
exactly.
one of those two, because she's one of the most she's like one of the most like expressive characters I've seen in a while, and I love the way that you've drawn them. Also, love your Mothman
Thank
art, by the
you.
way.
It is really fun to draw her. And at first, I tried to draw her in different outfits as well to see what kind of suits or what kind of person she would be.
Hmm.
But like you said, she's kind of mischievous and everything. Just a bit of a troublemaker.
Hmm. Okay. So, I wanted to go ahead and talk about a little bit more involved with let me go ahead and see here. I gotta go ahead and pull up my questions real quick. Um, so you have done commission work, and I'd love to go and hear your like history with working with that. Like how long have you been doing commissions for? Like either whether it be online or with like, oh, you're with your friend, you had your friend, you drew something for your friend. Like how long has it been
Hmm.
since you've done that?
A long time. Actually started like just doodling for friends and everything, and then my friends was like, "Well, you should do commissions." But
Mm,
for me, I was like, I don't know what kind of price to give my art. So I started looking at other people who did commissions and everything. And a few of my friends from England actually commissioned me as well.
mhm,
And that's really fun to do because they actually, I was like, well, I'll just do it for free. And they were like, no, I'll just pay you. And that was my real kind of first commission. And then I didn't do it for years because I was very busy. And then I just started doing it again, like in August last year.
mhm,
And that's when I finally kind of put a price to my art, which has been, it's really weird because some people ask like really high prices, but I didn't want to be like I didn't want people to be like, oh, it's really expensive or it's so cheap. I wanted to be kind of in the middle
mhm,
because I didn't want to get the in between kind of stuff is really hard. Let's see.
You're fine.
I didn't want to overprice, but I didn't want to have
Undercut.
people underpay me
Yeah.
either. So I started just looking up other people and seeing like, well, this is kind of similar to me, or I could just ask this for light art, color or shading, or full body, half body, or bust, or icons, or anything else. And so I guess I've been doing it for a long time, but actually seriously started doing it last year.
Okay. How much of your time do you think you dedicate towards this work versus like your studies? Like, I'd love to go and hear about that as well.
Um, I do study a lot, but I also when I come home from college and everything, the first thing I do is go behind my computer and just draw a bit, or either play games, try to get like inspiration for stuff. And that's kind of my me time. Like when I get home, I just want to relax. I just draw. I just play games and everything, or talk to my friends on the internet, and they were like, "Oh, what should I draw?" Just, I'll do this, or they give me ideas, so I give ideas to them. All that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you mostly use this as like as more like an unwinding process, especially the art that you make, at least at the
Yeah.
moment.
I just want it to be fun, fun for me and fun for others to just look at and everything.
All right. Here's an interesting question. What do you think is the difference between your working in like media design versus what you're doing right now? What do you think is going to be like the biggest differences between those two?
Actually, my last internship was with a bigger business in Amsterdam, and my college was actually one of the customers who paid me actually to have my art on their walls, which is really interesting because I did like a small little project for them, and then we're like, well, do you want to do your internship with us? And I was like, yeah, I do want to. That's really cool. And so actually, they helped me to see what the business is like, to see what I need to do, what because being at school, making art for fake clients and everything is really different from having an actual client. And I actually learned a lot from that internship because when I draw kind of whatever I want to, and they asked me that they wanted like these like really simplified characters like you see on signs and everything, but then more school like. So they have like on one of the buildings they have like business, sports, and hospitality. So I had to make like signs for business, signs for hospitality, and everything. And it's mostly three colors, just this white, black, and one of the colors that corresponds with the things they they wanted me to draw. So like each thing has their own color. So business has like yellow, hospitality has blue, sports has red. So that's kind of that's the things that they gave me, and they just kind of let me loose. And I've actually they made me go through the school and look and find walls that I thought I could use. So they didn't say like, oh, you got to use these walls, or just they were just kind of like to just walk around and find walls that you think you can decorate. So actually made art for a 12-meter wall.
Oh wow.
And that is actually one of my favorites to do because it was so big, and I had to go into InDesign and everything to see like, okay, is this big? I don't want to screw this up. I don't want it to be like too short or too long. So they actually helped me to get everything measured right. And it was really cool for me. But that's really different from what I do behind my own computer.
Mm.
So a computer, I just take like a square and just doodle until I find something that I like, and you just post it on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like that's a very different like world that you've pretty much like gone into, of going from what you want to go ahead and do and feel it out, and from that process and post either like the progress along the way, and it all being about like the specific passion that you have, versus like
Hmm.
they give you a prompt and they tell you like these are your limitations for like the design plan, and then you from there get to create something like within those limitations, but find ways to make it your own. Is that too far of a stretch?
No, it's exactly. It's kind of like you have to work outside the box, but I'll kind of stay in their box. So
Mm-hmm.
you do have limitations, yeah.
Yeah. Um, what is it that you're thinking about doing after you finish up this year? That like you're finishing up college, and I know
Mhm.
this is one of the biggest daunting questions that like every single college graduate ever gets, because I know I've had these. But do you have any like specific do you have any specific plans? If not, is it more of like continuing what you're doing and making a good relationship with the internship, or what do you want to go ahead and do?
That is indeed a kind of difficult question because I've been asking myself this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because for 2 years that I've been studying this again, I was like, I'm just gonna continue. I'm just gonna continue this. I'm gonna keep studying. But now that in my year that I'm gonna graduate, I'm kind of like, fun. Maybe I should start something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not quite sure. Do I want to keep studying? Do I want to work for a company or get myself my own kind of company? I'm not quite sure yet. I'm leaning towards the latter though.
Yeah. So I've been looking a lot into different into different like into different like not specific media design, but business creation,
Hmm.
specifically for this. So if I may say that, like, creating something on your own and making it your like, whether it be your brand or building up a company, can be very difficult, but it will definitely be rewarding if you were to do so. And I think if you have like a bit of a cushion at the moment, which I think you might, then
Hmm.
I definitely would recommend you go ahead and do so, because your art's one, excuse
Hmm.
me, your art's one clearly quality enough that you can go ahead and work into this internship and be hired as an artist. And I think that is a good thing to go ahead and promote yourself to different companies if you were to work yourself in the same way of media design.
Hmm.
And you also have like commission. You also have commission work that you've done, and the biggest thing about it is advertising yourself in a proper way. And I definitely think that hopefully, fingers crossed, with this podcast, I'm able to go ahead and bring you at least some attention more towards your different sort of work.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's more what I'm hoping to go ahead and go for. But with along with clients that you are going to be dealing with, especially in the future, there's also the case of having ones that aren't exactly the kind of clients that you would want to personally deal with. What is some? Do you have any like clients that you've realized like they were either a bad fit for you, or you thought they didn't work well with you, or you just did not enjoy the process with them, and like can you give the reasons why that was the case?
Actually, that happened once while in my last internship, because I had to talk with the people of my school like a bit higher up, and one of those just kept saying like, "No, I don't like this. I don't like this," while the others were like, "I think this is great. I think this is perfect." And then there's kind of a moment like you can't please everyone,
Hmm.
and the majority really liked it, and so I was like, well, I can't just. That was a moment where I was like, I can't please everyone with my art. Always going to be people who's not going to like this or not going to like that, or more want this or I want that. And yeah, but actually they helped me realize that those people are everywhere, whether it's on the internet or actually a client in front of you. And there's always going to be people which is not gonna well fit exactly together with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those people are better off if I refer them to other artists.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a lot of other friends. Some do 3D animations, some do the same as me, and they do have different styles than I do, of course. Some do more modern or more realistic, all kinds of stuff like that. Some are better at stuff like me. And then if I do think that they fit better with that kind of person, I will refer them to one of my friends, probably.
Okay. So you work in a communal sort of sense, and I definitely see that that not only being a good quality of like different artists, but it can definitely be a good sense of like delegating the work that you can bring towards running your own business. Especially with like showing like knowing what sort of client wants what, and then recognizing that these different artists that you can have underneath you or work alongside you would work better with you. So I think you definitely have like I think you definitely have at least the base skill set for what it takes to go ahead and get things working.
I sure hope so as well.
Yeah, I could definitely go ahead and see it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I might go ahead and commission something from you like just relatively soon because I love your work and I'd love for you to go ahead and do something like more personal with my character. But that's like that's coming in the future. But what I want to go ahead and talk about more about is you, and I hope you don't mind asking a little bit more questions about your personal life before you other than just your art.
That's no problem.
All right. So what was it really like growing up, especially in your household? I'd love to go ahead and hear a little bit more about how the dynamic of like, oh, your mom did art and you found it from that, and also your great uncle. And I'd love to go and hear a little bit more about how growing up even in the Netherlands is like, because like I'm just not fully aware of what it would be like compared to living a life of like some kid in Illinois and in the U.S.
um, I grew up with both parents at first until I was 4 years old, because then they just divorced. Which wasn't really a big problem to me, because I was like, well, my parents won't be having any problems or fighting anymore. And so I mostly grew up with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And from weekend to weekend, I'd go to my dad and everything. And let's see. I actually grew up with a lot of cats,
Mm-hmm.
because my mom used to breed Turkish Angoras. So at one point we had 11 cats in the house, which is kittens included.
Oh wow.
And there was a lot, actually. And we'd have a dog and a rabbit. But the rabbit was actually my brother and I were just too young, so we had to give that a better home.
Mm-hmm.
And after my parents' divorce, we had to get rid of most of the cats as well. And later, my mom got into another relationship, so I had like a stepdad for a while, and everything was fine. But then I started growing up, puberty and everything. I started being more rebellious to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad didn't really like that, because I also have a brother, and he's was more accepting of my brother than of me,
Mm-hmm.
because my brother could do more things at the same age as I would be at that time than I could do at that moment, and that annoyed me so much.
Mm-hmm.
But later, it actually started going better and better, because I stopped visiting him more, because I just couldn't see him without our little fights and everything.
Yeah.
Started being more and more with my mother and everything, and sometimes just going through my grand uncle and everything. And let's see what else.
No, it's fine if you don't want to go ahead and keep talking, but
No, it's fine. I just got gonna see what else is interesting in my life.
Oh no, there's a lot. I definitely
Um,
think there's a lot of different interesting things about your life.
I do play a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started playing Gmod years ago with a lot of English friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I started talking a lot of English and everything, and that's when I started playing more and more RPGs as well, trying to get into D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think started D&D about 6 years ago, and then about 4 years I stopped again, and now I'm trying to pick it back up because it's so much fun and everything. And oh my god, I just want to dive into that world sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun.
It very much is. Yeah, no, I definitely wow, 11 cats, I could not imagine. I mean, like I'm just like going back on it and realizing that they're like, yeah, I have one, and sometimes he's a little bit of a butt, but like I couldn't imagine like 11 of them.
I still
Oh,
have
man.
a few pets. Like I
Mhm.
said earlier, when I was talking to you, I have 4 dogs right now.
Mhm.
A Chihuahua.
Aw.
I forgot the name in English. It's like a Papillon, like
Mhm.
the French kind of breed, which is kind of like a Chihuahua but bigger.
Mm.
I got a Bernese Mountain Dog and a Husky. And the Husky is kind of new. She's like 10 months old right now.
I love huskies.
So she's like a Husky puberty right now,
Yeah.
and not listening to us.
Yeah.
I still have cats right now. 2 are mine and 2 are my brother, even though my brother doesn't live at home anymore right now because he lives on his own. So
Mhm.
we have 4 dogs, 4 cats, and I now have 2 birds as well, a
Mhm.
parakeet and a cockatiel, which go perfectly together. This is really sweet to each other as well.
Yeah.
And my husky is the newest one, of course, because she's like 10 months old, and she just loves to learn. She's really smart as well. So we take her to like puppy things, like puppy school. And I forgot what it's called. So we just call it puppy school. And
Mm.
she'd go there, and she's so much fun. She's having so much fun there.
Yeah. How much do you think like not only art but animals are like connected to a part of your life? Like
Hmm.
how much do you think that is like a part of like who you are?
I think that I can't live without pets. Because it's always been a part of me. I've always had dogs or cats,
Mhm.
or they I it's just so empty for me without pets. I just need
Aw.
something to cuddle, or just have on my lap while I do my work and everything, or
Mhm.
just go outside for a walk and be a bit social with other dog owners.
Mhm.
It's just little stuff like going out for a walk, or staying inside and cuddling in front of the TV.
Mhm. That's all really sweet. I love that. I love these little moments like that. I love that.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Now, I want to go ahead and make sure, and I didn't ask you fully, but your Discord announcement thing is pro gamer, and I wanted to talk about I wanted to talk about are you just an ally? Are you LGBT or
I'm asexual actually, and I
Oh,
have
okay.
a preference for women.
Okay.
I've known that I've been asexual since I started befriending some of my best friends now. Like I think it's like 6 years ago as well, because it's
Mhm.
like about the same time I started playing Dungeons and Dragons actually. And one of my best friends, actually, she was like, I'm asexual. I didn't know what I was, because for a long time I was like, I should probably like guys and everything, but I wasn't really interested.
Mhm.
And in high school, I did have a boyfriend, but it's like for 5 days, and I broke up with him
Mhm.
because I think I was more in love with the idea of being in love than liking him,
Yeah.
because he was actually the one who asked me out. I was like, oh, that's great, I finally have a boyfriend, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I realized like, nah, this isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's before I knew what asexuality was. And I started looking into it. I was like, "Whoa, this hits really close to home." I was like, I'm probably asexual, but I started looking into demisexual as well. And at first, I thought it was that.
Yeah.
But then years later, it's like, no, I'm definitely asexual.
Okay. No, I
And
think.
I started being more open about that because all my friends know. Some of my family doesn't, but it's not because I'm hiding it or anything. It's more like they haven't asked,
Yeah.
and so I don't really bother to like, oh, I'm asexual, because then I have to talk about it to them, and then it'll be a bother.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely there's definitely like that sort of pressure that you can go ahead and feel from like having to explain what exactly you are to different people.
Hmm.
And I definitely think that I definitely think that there are some people out there who either they don't know what exactly it is, or they're a little bit more, either they're confused about it, or they have like some sort of they have some sort of like pre existing like biases towards that.
Hmm.
And I don't want to go ahead and put the whole pressure on you, like explain the entirety of it, but I want to go ahead and like I would like to go ahead and at least like to talk with you about what that is, at least to you.
For me, it's mostly the lack of sexual attraction,
Hmm.
because I can just look at someone and be like, oh, they're pretty sexy or pretty cool, and not having the feelings of like, oh, I want to be intimate in a kind of way with
Hmm.
someone. If I think of myself being in a relationship, I think it's mostly just the romantic stuff, and not really a sexual intimate relationship, or more intimate in like the romantic kind of way. So like
Okay.
going to movies, holding hands, the little kisses and everything, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like there are people who are asexual who don't want a relationship, and I think a
Hmm.
lot of people that don't really know what asexuality is are like, well, don't well. I actually know some people who are like, well, you're asexual, you don't want a relationship. I was like, no, that's not what that is.
Hmm. Yeah. They're,
Because
they're
I do want a relationship. I do want a special someone and everything.
mhm.
But I think sometimes when you have a crush or anything, being asexual does kind of hold me back. Because
Mhm.
I am like, oh, well, what if they do want to be intimate that way? Would
Yeah.
that scare me off, or would my asexuality scare them off?
Mhm. I have friends who are asexual, and I've also known people who are aromantic as well, which is what you were stating before, which is people who don't want to have those sort of like relationships in that manner. Those are more aromantics, and they're like
Exactly.
there's clearly like, because the two can be somewhat sort of related with how society normally deems them to be. They tend to like either confuse the two, excuse me, pardon me, or they can either confuse the two or think that there is like some sort of like, oh, you just haven't found the right one. I've known plenty of people who have thought that about my friends, and
I've
I've
heard that as well. Yeah.
oh yeah, it is definitely something that has been like has been a thing around, and I wanted to go ahead and say a couple things. One, thank you so much for sharing that. That means a lot to not only me but the people who are listening.
No
Because I think
problem.
it's always important to have representation in that manner, especially for like ones that aren't 100% common. Especially
Hmm.
that, because there's a lot of people who definitely feel like they are alone in that manner, and I think that especially in the creative space there is an open acceptance for that because of the expression of who you
Yeah.
can be. So I definitely think that you sharing that is not only a positive thing, but it's also incredibly valid that the way that you feel, and despite what people may go ahead and say to you, I'm always a big person of like understanding people's feelings and wanting to go ahead and confirm to them that they're not just worried. They shouldn't be just worried about how other people will represent them. Their experiences are their own, and they deserve to be recognized.
Exactly. Feel the same as well. Because because I go to art school, I have a lot of people in my class who are LGBT plus and everything as well. Like a few of my close friends are bisexual or pansexual. One of my friends is actually asexual with a preference for women as well. So sometimes I used to talk to her like, "What is it like for you?" and everything, and because asexuality is different for a lot of people, because some people are sex repulsed, which they don't want sex at all, but are like asexuals who do have sex and everything, but more for their partner than for themselves and everything. And a lot of people just know that they're asexual, and it probably just depends on their partner and how understanding their partner is. Because some people that I do know are like, well, I'm asexual, but if my partner really wanted to, then they would have sex. Yeah.
Yeah. And like a lot of things, there's a spectrum of how everything goes, and each individual is unique in their own manner of how they feel and the way that they want to express themselves and all of that. But what I believe that the entire LGBT plus community is all about is mostly the experience of feeling sort of different than what people have been considered the normal, and finding a community that accepts you in that regard. And I definitely think that despite that there are definitely like variances inside of that for each individual. Like you said, people who are sex repulsed, there are some people who aren't, but will do so with their partner if they want to, not for their pleasure, but for the pleasure of their partner. Like there's a lot of different things that can like be variants with it. And so it's more of having an open understanding and mindset of sort of thing. And this isn't a lecture towards you. This is a lecture more towards the audience than anything. I'm sure you are very much more aware of it than I am. But yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
We are okay. So we're almost around about an hour. But I wanted to go ahead and say a few things first. First off, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast, talking about yourself, and enjoying, and me being able to gush about how I love your art so much, and I love the graph, and I want to go ahead and see more of you, especially your graphic design work. I hope we can find, I can go ahead and find more of that, and you'd be willing to go ahead and post some more of that, like maybe like on Twitter or something, because I know it doesn't make sense as much on Instagram because it's mostly meant for your artwork. But being proud of your work, especially involved with the work that you're going to do professionally, is something that I think that you could definitely post more about, because just because like it's something that is going to be a part of you for a long time, and you're hoping to go and make that your career.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Second, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everything that you're on. I know of your Twitter, I know of your Instagram, but I don't know of anything else. Do you have any other social medias?
I'm mostly on Instagram and on Twitter. And sometimes I post stuff to some groups on Discord, but that's mostly it.
Okay. Again, for the audio listeners at home, you'll go ahead and find her in the you go ahead and find Rissa in her in the podcast description, as well as on the title. But for everybody who's listening, it's at Laurocoronatus on both Twitter and Instagram. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yes, Laurocoronatus. And thank you also for the last thing, for helping making the show, technically, by giving me the inspiration for the name. In bright, bold letters, I see commissions open, and I'm like, that's a good thing. I like that. That rolls off the tongue. So thank you for partially making this podcast. Thank you to Bombarded for helping me find this wonderful artist. And I'm so glad that you have continued to do more work, and just want to say good luck on your future endeavors in media design, and all of your different pursuits in the art world.
Thank you so much. It was really fun to be on your podcast as well. Wow, I can't talk.
You're fine.
So yeah, thank you. was really interesting for me because this has been a first, really.
Mhm. Well, I hope that you'll be able to. I hope maybe in the future we could talk more about what you've done whenever you start up maybe your own business, and we could talk about what you're doing and maybe with your team. Um, but if that were to be the case, maybe you work on your own things. But is there anything you want to go ahead and say before I go ahead and wrap everything up?
I'm really gonna start listening to your podcast for sure. Knowing that I helped you kind of shape the name and everything, and I'm really interesting what other kind of things you do in your podcast. So
You I think you'll definitely like some of the I definitely think you're gonna like some of the artists I have on here. I have some good friends. I've got some relatively big artists as well. Some with like a couple thousand followers, some with like 9,000 followers. So hopefully some of them stick around past that point. And if you did, to all of you listening, thank you. And be sure to go ahead and give her a follow. And I hope to raise this whole community of people up, just in general, of different creators, so that way they can all find not only you but all the different creators I've had on this podcast as well. Thank you, Rissa, so much.
thank you as well.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Commissions Open. If you would, please follow this podcast on whatever app you use. I would most definitely appreciate it. If you're just listening, that's perfectly fine. However, if you'd like, you can also watch this podcast on YouTube to see a custom commission every episode for each guest I have on, as well as to see the wonderful podcast set. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ComsOpenPodcast. That's COMS Open Podcast on Twitter. Finally, you can follow today's guest Rissa on Twitter and Instagram at Laurocoronatus. That's LAUROCORONATUS on both Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.